The peninsula, which can be crossed by car in just an hour, seems small, but this is where Europe and Asia meet, and where two seas meet. Greeks, Turks, Ukrainians, Caucasians, and Russians have fought fierce battles here, which is why this place can be called multicultural. You're on the Buyan Canal, and we're on the Taman Peninsula. Let's go! I've come to the darkness of the cockroach. Don't believe me? Here it is. What wind brought me to the city that Lermontov called nasty?
We are even proud of Skverny.
How do the Cossacks live and welcome guests here? That's my lucky day. What do grandmothers do in the production of Taman wine?
Yes, this is a bottle.
Grandma, is it true that red and white wine can be offended? That is, wine can take offense. Yes. And Socrates' contemporaries built a whole city here. Would you like to go to Greece without leaving Russia? Yes, you certainly haven't seen the coast of Krasnodar cry like this. Well, let's start with the facts. Taman is a quiet resort in the western part of the Taman Peninsula. It is part of the Krasnodar region. The history of this village is such that it could easily get into the textbooks of several states at once, if of course this has not happened yet. Nevertheless, Taman is small. Permanently here live about 10,000 people. In summer, the village suffocates from the influx of tourists, and they now and then try to get into the very heart of Taman, where people who spoke the same language as Socrates lived. Do you want to go to Greece without leaving Russia? You don't believe me? See for yourself. Taman village is considered to be one of the oldest in Russia. Imagine people lived here in the 6th century BC, and they were Greeks.
They were mainly engaged in trade, bread, the Mediterranean Sea, due to which the city was able to get economic development.
Here they grew a variety of grapes, which became the progenitor for modern Russian berries, and they built a city. It's true that now it's hardly believable. At first it might seem like it's just rocks and sand, well, or some kind of construction site. But if you use your imagination, you can imagine how people lived here. There must have been a narrow entrance hall. There's 2 rooms and a tile roof on top. It's a small apartment overlooking the sea.
We can see how close the foundations are to each other here.
Why is one higher and one lower?
Slightly different times. One house was built first, perhaps it was demolished. Then a new builder comes in, digs a new foundation trench, lays the stone, and erects a new house.
But if there was so little space, why did they come here in the first place? Turns out it was all decided by money. This piece of land was geographically very favorable. You can see for yourself it's a short walk to the sea, which means that many trade routes passed through here. That's why the locals made good money from buying and selling. Then came the Polovtsians, Circassians, Turks. There was no one else here. They fought and sometimes somehow got along peacefully. But if from the Greek houses remained only the foundations, the Turkish fountain in the center of the village survived. What do you imagine when you hear the word fountain? It's water gushing out of the ground under pressure, right? That's what I thought. But the Turkish fountain is actually quite different. It's this little building with a grated door. It's a well. During the occupation, thirsty Germans came here. In fact, the Turkish fountain was the only source of fresh water for the locals for a long time. Shall we try it?
Shouting.
Honestly, it's a little scary to drink it, but it doesn't smell like anything. Water is water. I hope I don't get poisoned. Oh, there's something floating in there.
It's a fountain like this. The liquid was good. And how this construction works, scientists still do not understand. After all, there is no fresh water in the village. Let's return to the ancient city, which under Prince Sviatoslav Igorevich in the distant 956th year, the Russians still conquered, and named I always thought that Tmutarakan is a fictional place, but it turns out, here it is. This city really existed, here in Taman. Then there were wars again, then the Russian-Turkish battle in the 18th century. And after the victory, Catherine II issued a decree on the settlement of the peninsula participants in the battle, the Zaporizhian, that is, the future Kuban Cossacks. A little over 200 years ago, the first Cossacks came here and built the first Orthodox church, this one.
A bird screams and sat on me.
From this moment begins the history of Taman. True, the foundation of the temple goes much deeper into history. In the early 20th century, the temple was restored, and scientists found out that the temple stands on an ancient foundation. But on what kind, Greek or Turkish, is still unknown.
A bird, and those faces are pouring, heavy frosts in winter. He baptizes me, and I'm on. The field.
But how did the first Cossacks spend the winter here? After the war, everything was destroyed and houses had to be rebuilt. You can see how it was in the largest, most beautiful museum of an exact copy of the Cossack town Ataman. And you and I won't get into it, because I am so lucky that exactly at the time I came here, the museum decided to close for reconstruction. A square, a market, a church, a tavern, huts, all in an area the size of 30 soccer fields. You're welcome to come back if you want. But after the reconstruction, it's actually a very famous museum. Everyone advises to come here. So if you come to Ataman, you should come here. And if you have already been here, write in the comments how you like it here. What should a poor tourist do? Maybe the Cossacks will give you a hint.
A bird is screaming. Screaming bird, screaming.
Not now.
Wanted very much to go to Ataman, but they're closed now. I read that.
There's a museum of Cossacks here.
Of course, it's in our Cossack headquarters. Take our hands and we'll show you around.
That's my lucky day.
A bird.
Not here. I'm in a museum where I'm being given a tour by Cossacks. And all around are things that were used by local housewives 100 and more years ago, and I'll try to guess how. For example, what is this? An instrument of torture for a straying husband?
An iron? An iron? Yes, an iron. It's like this. You take a drop like this, put the thing on it and roll it out like this. Thank you. Next to this, for example, which is right here, this one here, this one here, this is a food processor.
And where else but not here can you see a checker that was in battle then?
The A-checkers came mainly from the Caucasus. It was the Circassian checkers. There used to be ordinary hoes, some axes. Checkers were taken gradually with battles, years, hundreds of years, it all went through.
So much for multiculturalism. Who's burqa? I saw one of these in Georgia. It's a Cossack burqa.
Yes, it was taken from the Caucasus, also Caucasians, also Cossacks took something from Caucasians, Caucasians took something from us. Just because you see a burqa, it doesn't mean only that the Cossacks were so big, as if I'm not small myself, but this is the part of the burqa that they wore on the horse that covered part of the horse.
So that it wouldn't be cold either.
Polyushka field, Polyushka wide field, riding on the field of heroes. Oh yes, glorious Russian hero.
And the best part is that you can touch the story. Take it in your hands. But remember, in what other museum of antiquity, you will be allowed to sit down and feel yourself, for example, a Cossack.
Yes, you can sit down.
But you can't stay too long. After all, I'm in the land of 3 seas. That's what the locals call it. The Black Sea, the Sea of Azov, and the third sea you can't find on any map. But I'll show you. Let's go. I'm approaching the Tuzla axis. Tuzla is a strip of land in the water. Yes, there is one in Russia. Tuzla Spit is on the Taman Peninsula. Lies between the main resorts and the Republic of Crimea. And it is not just a piece of land, but a place where the Kerch Strait meets from the south and the Gulf of Taman from the north. You can pick up souvenirs right on the shore. Look how huge it is. Over millions of years, the spit has been dried up by the blazing sun and drowned by storms. 20 years ago, it had to be restored. Now it's 4 kilometers long. And how much width, it is difficult to say, because the spit is constantly increasing due to the sand and shells brought to the shore. And where the spit ends, the Kerch Strait begins. Here it is, the Kerch Strait, the place where 2 seas meet at once. Next to me is the Black Sea, and beyond the bridge is the Sea of Azov. Therefore, in summer you can swim in 2 seas at once. The Kerch Strait connected the 2 seas and became the border between Europe and Asia, which stretches from the coast of the Kara Sea to the Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul. And this place is so magical that it even has its own myth. According to Greek stories, Zeus fell in love with her. And to hide the connection from his wife Hera, the god of thunder and lightning turned his beloved into a cow. But the wife found out and put a huge gadfly on the lover, which made her offend half the world and even swim across the Kerch Strait. And she offended from the side of Crimea, that is, she swam the whole Kerch Strait from there and came out here, on the shore. Perhaps it would have been easier for her if at that time there was a Crimean bridge, which today connects the Krasnodar region and the Republic of Crimea. Locals say that with the construction of the bridge, the dolphins simply flooded the sea. And summer videos on which Black Sea dolphins swim very close to people confirm this.
Generally cool, look. A meter away from me, look guys, in General Valdez.
But you have to be careful, they say they throw fish is not a joke. This is how it was last summer. The footage shows a dolphin swimming up to tourists and throwing a huge fish at them. But if it's Azov and Black Sea, there should at least be seafood. Everything it seems it's time for lunch. Especially internet gourmets praise some special local fish. And I chose one of the best restaurants where they serve the morning catch for lunch. And the first to arrive is a mushroom with Mexican salsa sauce.
It's divine. The scallop is so tender and delicate.
And when paired with a serving like this, what? Is it wine time yet?
It's so good.
As you can see, there's no wine without wine.
I can't find anything better. This is delicious.
For the second course, seafood risotto.
Yeah, that's Kebab.
The bird is screaming.
It's unbelievably good. It's like Italy.
And instead of dessert, the very fish that all Russian gourmets are hunting for. Black Sea palengas. Just check out this selection of sounds that tell you more about the flavor.
Because they nurse the wine like grandchildren. It sounds strange.
Sorry, I can't write anything
but
down. It's so
winemakers
good I
have
just
their own
can't stop.
superstitions.
Well, now it's
In
time to
cellars
reveal the
where
cards.
wine is stored
the
in
third
wooden
sea,
barrels,
along with the Sea of
the
Azov and
aroma
the Black Sea,
immediately
the
lifts
people
your
of Taman
spirits.
call the Wine Sea. A
That's
joke,
due
of
to
course.
evaporation.
Thanks to the unique
That's
geographical
almost
position of
10
Taman,
bottles a year
due to
from
which the
one
local
wooden
climate is
barrel
similar
just
to the one in the
evaporates.
province of Provence, where they grow
Centuries
grapes
ago,
and create unique wines known
winemakers
all
didn't
over the
understand
world.
why the
Therefore,
drink was
it is not
disappearing.
surprising that the wine business is very developed on the Taman Peninsula. And they even let tourists into the production. I am at the winery, which is spread over 12,000 hectares. Here they produce millions of bottles a year, and they promise to let me taste some exclusive wine.
Carbonated, unfiltered. Why do they age it in barrels? It can be aged that way. Did you know that red wine wouldn't have that nice red brick color if it wasn't aged in a barrel?
And look at these three-story tanks.
Made of oak. If you know, give me a like.
And if you don't, I'm about to tell you, because I've met a man who has made thousands of barrels in his life. Meet Pavel, the master of the workshop, who chooses forest beauties of the most venerable age for barrels. Oak,
The
because it has
volume!
less resins, which give wine an unpleasant taste.
One such den,
And the
20,000
boards,
Nicoliters.
or as they call
On
them
the
here,
site is in the
are
neighborhood of
sawn
5
only
million
vertically.
Nicoliters.
Oak, because it has less of the resins
Wine material.
that give wine a bad flavor.
That's a figure!
Look how it was.
And in
how
bottles,
we've
how
got
much
it
is that
now.
approximately?
We have
70
rays
million.
going all the
70
way down
million
the
bottles?
body
Yes.
of the material.
You don't even have to
so
taste
that
the wine here.
material
Even the
holds
flavors
right
are
amount of
crazy.
retention time for us, and the barrel doesn't go bad. Welcome to the barrel. The keg is just connected, and I'm kind of wondering.
And
if
once
it's
the
hot
wine
or
has
not,
fermented in the
because it's
tanks,
steamy.
it goes to the
But to what
aging room,
degree?
and you'll never guess what the drink of the
Conditionally,
gods is called
roughly
here.
speaking.
Yana.
Yeah. There's no scrap, for one thing. And consequently, it's more malleable in order to deform it in the future already.
We do this in order to give the future aging of drinks a
I'm asking you to
certain
be a little
aroma
quieter. You
and
can hear me
color.
talking very quietly. So wine can
Depending
take
on the
offense.
firing
Yes,
period,
wine can take offense.
depending on
We
the
talk
strength
quietly
of the
and
firing,
respectfully.
In
There
cellars
is
where
a
wine is
smell
stored
of
in
some
wooden
fruit.
barrels, the aroma
In other
immediately lifts
words,
your spirits.
the
It's the
sugars in
evaporation.
the wood
In the
crystallize
process
and
of
give
storage
the
in
wine
barrels,
the
there
most
is a slight
flavor,
evaporation
while
due to
changing
the
its
fact that our
colors to
wine
more
breathes
noble
through the
ones.
pores. In general, up to 8% per year can evaporate
And
from
my
a barrel.
tour continues.
That's decent.
That's
this
almost
is the
10
most
bottles a year
flavorful
from
part.
one wooden barrel just evaporating. Centuries ago, winemakers
Artem,
didn't understand why the
teach me
drink
how
was
to properly
disappearing,
taste
so they
wine.
came up with a legend that
I have
angels
4
came down from
bottles of
heaven
wine in
and
front
took
of
some
me.
for a good harvest, and they called it the angel's share. There's an angel's share, and this is going to be a Yana's share.
Produced by the classic method of fermentation in the bottle.
Maybe that's how the wine evaporates. Cold, carbonated, unfiltered, why does it have to be aged in barrels? You can do it that way. Did you know that red wine wouldn't have that nice red brick color if it wasn't aged in a barrel? And why the cylindrical vessel is made of oak? If you know, give me a like. And if you don't, I'm about to tell you. Because I've met a man who has made thousands of barrels in his life. Meet Pavel, the foreman of the workshop, who chooses forest beauties of the most venerable age for barrels.
The moment of state administration is a little random, trying to inflate other documents.
He does oak because it has fewer resins, which give wine an unpleasant flavor. And the planks, or as they call them here, rivets, are only sawn vertically.
De l'après de vivre tradition.
Then the masters make wooden skirts like this, reinforcing the bottom with rings and sending it to boiling water for an hour. The barrel is just connected, and I wonder whether it is hot or not, because the steam is going, but to what extent? Is it safe to touch? After winter, after the snow, it's okay to warm up. It smells. It turns out just water soaks, conditionally, roughly speaking, soaks the wood, and the wood becomes more malleable.
You can still do it.
So the cylindrical shape is not cut. The bend is obtained with the help of hot water. The barrel is ready. But why burn it over a fire? It turns out even the spirit gives citrus properties by burning. My tour continues, and this is the delicious part. Artem, teach me how to taste wine properly. I have 4 bottles of wine in front of me. Some delicious local cheeses and a real sommelier. The experts call it this. First, the eye of the wine.
In the bubble for the acid.
Now the
tends to
nose
go
of
up.
the wine.
And always
The
around the
aroma
rim
has
of the
dogwood,
glass, you'll have a necklace
prune
of
notes,
bubbles.
even some jammy notes.
This is indicative
And
of a
finally,
quality
the mouth
product.
of the wine, that is tasting. Yes, 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 yes.
Now the nose of the wine.
In the aroma, there's dogwood.
Prunes, prune notes, even some jam notes.
I would never have guessed that in my life.
And finally, a mouthful of wine. I mean tasting. I'm sensing citrus and a hint of vanilla. This is heaven, gentlemen sommeliers. What are the other advantages?
The thing is that in the Soviet Union there were documents specially for tasters that they could travel a little drunk.
We live in Russia, and if we had these IDs now, every second person would probably be a taster.
I don't have an ID, so I'm going to check into the hotel on foot. Surprise me, Stanitsa, because experienced tourists say there are no comfortable hotels and service is so bad, but I found one of the most modern hotels, which stands right by the Crimean Bridge. Inside gives fresh renovation and German minimalism.
Nice, cozy, and clean.
Huge bed. A minute of relaxation on a king-size bed, and I'm on my way again. More precisely, on the main embankment of the village. How beautiful the sea is here, and it is in winter. I don't understand why one very famous writer disliked Taman so much. Taman, the meanest town of all seaside towns in Russia. Mikhail Lermontov called this town by the mouth of his hero Grigory Pechorin. And what do you think the locals did? Offended? No, they exalted themselves by this name. And what didn't he like here? The people are helpful, the house by the sea, but it's tiny. What a lovely little door. But they didn't make it so small for us to admire. Now the museum researcher will tell us all about it.
When the Cossacks came here not long before Lermontov, in 1792 year, it was practically empty land. No stone, no wood. There are no planks, no wood, so low from what there was. So it's also unkempt, humble, poor.
And look how the poet lived. No feather beds or silk. What a small room. And this is where the great poet lived. But the view from the window is amazing. But it could not be good, because here, the author was sent into exile for criticizing the political system. But it was here that he found inspiration for the whole chapter about Pechorin, for the hero of our time. Lermontov did not hide the fact that the work is autobiographical. For example, Pechorin, as well as Lermontov, were passing through Taman. And on a similar boat, Pechorin rode with contrabandists who tried to kill him. Did this really happen to the author? Lermontov cleverly kept silent. True, the author's real house has not survived. The shore was washed away by water, and the house simply slid into the sea. And the inhabitants, whom the poet disliked so much, built an exact copy based on the book. Are you not offended at all that Lermontov called Taman a bad little town?
No, we are even, he says, proud of Shkverny, because in the square is in a decent place where people like to go out, and in the square strolling to go to the great Russian poet Igor Slavovich.
There are indeed many squares here, as well as houses in the Cossack style, similar to the one in which Lermontov lived. Look at the oldest district of the village, because it is literally studded with white low huts. They are still called that here. We came with you to visit one of the oldest residents of Taman, Maria Ivanovna, and in each yard there is a small piece of a great history. There's even a swimming pool, which still has water in it. You're going to tell me now, Yana, it's a well. No. Tamani calls it a pool because the water was imported. I can also hear that I'm already being greeted and waited for, with songs, maybe even dancing, and they're greeting me in the Cossack way, loudly. Maria!
Vanna, they're coming! Hello!
Meet Maria Ivanovna Farmakidova. She is 83 and her house is always full of guests and friends. Today they've prepared a typical Cossack dinner, especially for me. We have dumplings.
Dumplings with potatoes. Exactly Kuban dumplings. They were poured with a special gravy, which consisted of fried onions and vegetable oil.
All homemade. Vareniki, lard, wine, all homemade. And I was hoping they'd teach me how to cook a Cossack dish. But that's not the way it's done here when guests set the table. But it doesn't matter when Ukrainians, Russians, and Bulgarians gather around the table on one small peninsula, singing Cossack songs about modern Taman to the accordion.
Sounds.
Song.
This peninsula made me cry, dance, and laugh, and also constantly learn something new, wonder, sometimes even freeze. And having vacationed here for almost a week, I can say for sure, about the nasty with Lermontov I would definitely argue. But that was too long ago to be true today. When I traveled here, I thought it had the richest history. That's certainly true, but here's where I was wrong. This region's greatest asset is its people. I haven't seen such openness and hospitality in a very long time. Jan Buyan channel has been with you. Subscribe, like, and comment. And remember, with me you will miss places you have not been to yet.